What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, undefeated 3-division world champion, former undisputed junior welterweight world champion, currently the reigning WBO welterweight world champion, widely considered by many to be the #1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, in Terence Bud Crawford. 38 wins, no losses, no draws. 29 big wins by way of knockout, 34 years of age, 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach. Well, he finally responds back to two-time junior middleweight world champion superstar boxer, who currently is the unified junior middleweight world champion, and headed into a massive undisputed showdown in superstar boxer Jermell Charlo. Jermell Charlo, excuse me, 34 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, 18 wins by way of knockout, 31 years of age, 5'11" with a 73-inch arm reach as listed. More so 6 feet tall with a 74-inch arm reach, okay? Jermell Charlo, excuse me, was featured on Last Stand podcast with Brian Custer. And Jermell Charlo, he addressed Terence Crawford, stating that, stating that he would move up to junior middleweight, 154 from the 147-pound welterweight limit, and challenge the winner of Jermell Charlo, as Jermell Charlo is going into his, like I stated, undisputed showdown. That's scheduled to take place May 14th, because he's the WBO, World Boxing Organization's welterweight champion. He can make himself the immediate mandatory challenger if he can't secure a fight with Jermell Charlo's stablemate in his biggest rival, undefeated unified WBC IBF welterweight world champion superstar boxer, who is widely considered by many to be top 3 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, in Errol the Truth Spence Jr. 27 wins, no losses, no draws, 21 big wins by way of knockout, 32 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 74-inch arm reach, with a 72-inch arm reach, excuse me. Errol Spence is going into a massive unification bout with WBA Cuban star welterweight world champion Yordenis Ugas. Okay, Yordenis Ugas is 27 wins, 4 losses, no draws, 12 wins by way of knockout, 35 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 69-inch arm reach. That's scheduled to take place April 16th, Arlington, Texas, AT&T Dallas Cowboys Stadium. But, excuse me, Jermell Charlo is going into a undisputed match May 14th with undefeated WBO Argentinian junior middleweight world champion Brian Castano. Okay, so Terence Crawford is now a network promotional free agent after his victory over two-time welterweight world champion superstar boxer Showtime Sean Porter, November 20th of 2021. So now he's parted ways with longtime promoter, top-ranked CEO and promoter Bob Arum and ESPN. He's a network promotional free agent. There's talks that he could sign with Richard Schaefer and Probellum, and he's advised by MTK Global. Okay, so he is looking for the biggest fights, as he's older than both guys. Now, Jermell Charlo will be 32 in May. Errol Spence just turned 32 2 weeks ago. So with that said, you know, Terence Crawford he's up against the clock. He'll be 35 in September. So he stated that if he can't secure the fight with Errol Spence, which is the biggest fight in boxing, and that's Jermell Charlo's friend and stablemate, then he's going up to fight Jermell Charlo, who was the favorite to beat Brian Castano in their highly anticipated rematch that ended in a draw the first time. And so Jermell Charlo on Last Stand podcast, we know he responded to Terence Crawford by saying, you know, Terence Crawford needs to humble himself, take less money, put himself in position to fight Errol Spence, because Errol Spence is a stud, right? And that's a massive fight. If you mess around, come up here, I'm knocking you out. That's what Jermell Charlo had to say in you know, long story short. Well, Terence Crawford has finally responded. First off, his team has responded, and they stated that if Jermell Charlo is so high on himself and believes himself so much, then he would accept the fight. Jermell Charlo never said he wouldn't accept the fight. He just said that he think it'd be best for Terence Crawford to face off against Errol Spence, who's in his weight class. And then he stated that there's other big fights. You got Keith Thurman, Jerron Ennis, Danny Garcia. You got big fights right there in your own weight class. Focus on that weight class, okay? Never said he wouldn't accept the fight. Just said, if you come up here, I'm knocking you out. So Terence Crawford's team, they stated that, if Jermell Charlo is so confident take the fight, Terence Crawford could, they're confident he could beat Jermell Charlo, so on and so forth. I broke that fight down. Terence Crawford does have an opportunity to beat Jermell Charlo. He's very rangy. He's versatile. But Terence Crawford is starting to show that he's not as effective in his abilities to switch from orthodox to southpaw as he once was. When he's in the orthodox stance, he's not as effective as he once was. We saw guys like Kell Brook, Igis Kavalauskas, and Sean Porter. They pressured him when he was in the orthodox stance, and they had a lot of success. So he's more comfortable in the southpaw stance than he clearly is in the orthodox stance. Jermell Charlo is far bigger, far more tech. He would be the toughest task of Terence Crawford's career. Okay, nobody Terence Crawford has faced has the power, the skill set, the technical skill set, the ring IQ, and the athletic ability of Jermell Charlo. Okay, he's never faced somebody with the jab and the quickness of Jermell Charlo. And on top of that, you factor in Jermell Charlo is about 4 inches taller than Terence Crawford, and he's about he has an equal arm reach, but he has just as much, if not more, power than Terence Crawford. He's just physically more imposing and bigger and stronger than Terence Crawford, okay? But with that said, Terence Crawford is skilled. Terence Crawford can box. He's a special fighter. And yes, he does have an opportunity to win that fight. So with that said, Terence Crawford, he responds to it. And now he's just saying, silence is golden, right? You don't have to say nothing, right? So essentially, then he put up a video. You saw him put up a video with Terence Crawford with his mom, just hanging out with his mom, unbothered, okay? And so, Terence Crawford is just saying silence is golden. I don't need to say nothing, unbothered, okay? We'll just see, okay? So we know that Terence Crawford fancies the fight with Errol Spence. He's already stated that he wants this fight. He's hungry for the fight. And he expressed that Errol Spence was just as hungry for the fight as he was. And we know that Terence Crawford is confident. He already told Jermell Charlo, you keep running your mouth and I'm going to have to come up there 154 and handle business against you. Okay, this is when Jermell Charlo was discussing, the possibility of him fighting Terence Crawford and Terence Crawford fighting Errol Spence, in which he picked, obviously, Errol Spence to win. And he's confident he could beat Terence Crawford, okay? So Terence Crawford is saying, I don't need to say much, okay? Silence is golden, okay? And he's letting his team, obviously, they're going to speak for Terence Crawford. I believe that at this point in time, Terence Crawford, who's taken Top Rank and Bob Arum to court, is not being very vocal. I know Terence Crawford has stated on social media that these guys are letting social media is hyping up, is doing more to talking than the fighting, right? And he's going to stop allowing social media to hype him up and hype up, the fights, and these fights are not going to happen. So he's just saying silence is golden, unbothered. He's just relaxing with his mother, relaxing with his family, and focusing on his kids and their activities, right? And obviously, Jermell Charlo, this didn't fall out the sky for Jermell Charlo. It's not like he just decided to wake up and address Terence Crawford. These are comments made by Terence Crawford, okay? And he's responding to the comments made by Terence Crawford when he had the opportunity. This would be a huge opportunity for Terence Crawford. Now, Terence Crawford currently, as it stands, is not a bigger star than Errol Spence Jr., okay? He's behind. He's far behind on as far as a massive draw goes, behind Errol Spence Jr., okay? And so with that said, I believe that Terence Crawford, definitely, if he fought Jermell Charlo, if he skipped the line, went up and fought Jermell Charlo and won the fight against Jermell Charlo, becoming undisputed in 2 separate weight classes, a 4-division world champion, still undefeated, and beating the best junior middleweight in the world, you hold all the cards at that point, because eventually I believe that Errol Spence would stay. If Terence Crawford leaves and goes to junior middleweight, that means he's going to vacate his WBO title at welterweight. Now, that means that more than likely Errol Spence will have the opportunity to fight undefeated Mexican superstar, welterweight title contender Vergil Ortiz Jr., who has a fight coming up in April, I believe, against Michael McKinson. But Vergil Ortiz Jr., 18 wins, no loss and no draw, 18 wins by way of knockout, 24 years of age, 5'10" with a 70-inch arm reach. he's number 1 in the WBO ranking. So he would be in position to fight for the vacant WBO title that would be vacated by Terence Crawford, and Errol Spence could fight Virgil Ortiz Jr. for the vacant WBO title for undisputed at that point in time. Okay. And then I expect Errol Spence that will be a huge fight in Dallas, in Arlington, Texas, at Cowboy Stadium, where Errol Spence currently grand fight, because Virgil Ortiz is also from Dallas, Texas. Okay, so he's also from the Arlington area. So that would be a massive fight for Virgil Ortiz and Errol Spence in Dallas, Texas, for undisputed. Obviously, this is assuming Errol Spence gets past Yordenis Ugas, and then Errol Spence is going to be undisputed at welterweight, one division. Then he's going to move up, and he'll be challenging Terence Crawford at that point for Terence Crawford's titles. And Terence Crawford will have the biggest win out of them all. None of the wins Errol Spence would have at that point in time would be bigger than Terence Crawford beating Yordenis Ugas. Beating Jermell Charlo at junior middleweight, okay, and become undisputed at 2 divisions. So at that point in time, he holds the cards. He would be the A side, and Errol Spence would be the challenger. So if he wanted to put himself ahead and secure and truly solidify himself as the biggest star, he would have to do that, okay? At least that would garner, at the very least, a 50-50. I think it would put it past it, because there's no bigger win on neither one of their resumes than fighting and beating Jermell Charlo, especially doing so. You would be the underdog and going up to his weight and challenging the undisputed champion, because I expect Jermell Charlo to beat Brian Castano. So that would speak volumes for Terence Crawford, okay? So Terence Crawford, you know, he says he's unbothered. He ain't worrying about it. And when it happens, it happens. So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. Obviously, Errol Spence, he has a fight coming up, and Errol Spence already stated that he wants to fight with Terence Crawford after this fight with Yordenis Ugas. We don't know what Terence Crawford's next fight is going to be. Obviously, they're both, that being Jermell and Brian and Errol Spence, are both busy. He's fighting, Errol Spence is fighting, Errol Spence is going to fight, you know, Yordenis Ugas April 16th, and Jermell Charlo is going to fight, he's going to fight against Brian Castano May 14th. So they're both busy. Now you look at Terence Crawford. He last fought in November. He has the ability right now to fight. There was talks of him fighting possibly Keith Thurman coming back in July. But we got to see how this lawsuit and this court case goes with Bob Arum and Top Rank, and see what happens next. But can't wait to see how this unfolds and plays out. And I think either way, that Terence Crawford, let's say he fought Errol Spence next and beats Errol Spence, becomes undisputed at welterweight. Then he goes up and challenges Jermell Charlo, and let's say he beat Jermell Charlo. He'd be undisputed in 3 separate weight classes. That's historic. But let's see how this unfolds and plays out. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.